So I have a notion here because it is this choir music. There's so much of it going on. I actually want to know, does anyone know who Santa's favorite singer is? Santa's favorite singer? Huh? What are you doing? Carol? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Carol, like Carol Burnett. Or- yeah. No, you're all wrong. It's Elvis Presley. Rude of you. All right. Well, friends, there are again two things I want to convey to you this morning. It is an invitation and a promise. The invitation is to use your imagination for the Advent season. And this is the time of year when we can be most able to use our imaginations and be forgiven for doing so. These weeks will be full as Christmas stockings with songs and stories of flying reindeer and overworked elves and talking snowmen. We will go along for the sake of others. We will embrace the impossible, wink at each other, and for moments actually participate in the magic. Does this sound familiar to some of you? I'm asking that you open your hearts and your minds and take your imaginations up a level. Imagine that the next few weeks you are on a pilgrimage. You're on a pilgrimage from brokenness to wholeness. I encourage you that to yourself or to someone you trust, that you would name your greatest hurt or your greatest fear. It might be something you did a long time ago. It might be something someone did to you. It can be very personal. Or it can be your own broken heart over racism, hunger, or injustice. You begin this pilgrimage from this point. And please note, I call this a pilgrimage and not a journey, because a journey does not describe the depth of this season's invitation to you. Now look at the map on the front of your bulletin. The big picture pilgrimage is from brokenness to wholeness. But each week the pilgrimage will invite you to a particular reflection. What does your movement from brokenness to wholeness look like when it is viewed from the perspective of moving from conflict to peace, which you did last week, from sorrow to joy, which we do this morning, from despair to hope, which we will do next week, and finally, before Christmas Eve, a movement, a pilgrimage from apathy to love. And where do we end up? Asked another way, where is God? Where is life? Where is love calling us to go and calling us to be? A pilgrimage is a sacred journey. Sometimes a sacred journey begins with that intention, and sometimes a journey ends with the gift of being a pilgrimage. It wasn't what we intended when we start out, but it came to us and blessed us. So open your hearts and minds and use your imagination. The second thing I want to convey to you this morning is a promise. The promise is that we can move from sorrow to joy. One of the things that has come to me in this past week is that I am always working to convey a theology that is honest, realistic, and hopeful and healing. But sometimes you don't need me to share my theology. What you need most is for me to share my heart. When I share my theology, I always try to acknowledge the world's brokenness and your brokenness and the need that we have, and then to offer a wisdom, not my wisdom, far from it, but wisdom from a deep religious tradition that I have found spiritual comfort and hope. In this, you may have missed that my aim has always been to lift your own spirits, to offer you comfort, and to give you hope. I hear your weariness. I hear your worry. My heart breaks with yours as you grieve the losses of your spouses, your parents, your children, your jobs, your idealism, and your dreams. I also feel my life shrinking as I cannot do everything I used to do. I cannot move furniture downstairs the way I used to be able to do. And for the last 3 years, Peg and I's life together has been dominated by a roller coaster ride of needs and issues and victories related to our adult children. Adult children by birth and one by spiritual adoption. The roller coaster ride is not over, nor will it be over, because that is life. When I hear you express hurt and anger, even over something such as changing the words to traditional Christmas songs, I hear behind your words and hearts that are tired and worn out. Tired and worn out from the demands of love and life and justice. I see you are fatigued, and you need Christmas as a break from such demands. For 11 months out of the year, you're willing to put it all out there and put it all on the line for neighbor, love of neighbor and love of God. But for 4 weeks, can we please take a break? Can we please lose ourselves in the warmth of family and memories? The sorrow is always so close to the surface. For so many things in our lives and for the sake of the world. Can we not put it on the shelf with the elf for just a little while? I've said for years as your pastor that Advent is the season of the wedge blade, unlike any other liturgical season. The anticipation of peace, joy, hope, and love being born into the world is God's newest thrust in the midst of history. And even when I feel my most down and beaten up, I cannot shake loose of the conviction that has a hold of me that love is the last word and is constantly, always being born into the world and calling us to greater love for one another. In Christianity, the incarnation, the presence of God with us, Emmanuel, is God's newest thrust in history. As such, love is being born every minute of every day. But friends, I get it. You're tired. And you need a silent night for just a little while. Karen Richter, the director of spiritual formation, is correct. Christmas is all about social justice. But can we put it on a shelf with the elf for just a little while? No one and no community can sustain a cutting edge of inclusion and justice all the time. We are not God. We are human beings with our needs and our frailties. We are human beings and we need to give our spirits rest. We feel overwhelmed and the sorrow builds up. We want to take a break. But there is a thin line between denying our sorrow and denying our joy. I am with William Wordsworth on this one. In his poem, Surprised by Joy, he asked a question. Joy, how could I forget thee? Through what power, even for the least division of an hour, have I been so beguiled as to be blind to my most grievous loss, which is joy? Sorrow and the reasons for its existence seem to be all around us. It is powerful, and we must be careful not to be blinded by it. Sorrow can be like blinders on a horse, and like a horse we trudge and slog through the same grief paths of life, and then we miss the joy and the reasons for joy that are all around us. And so to make the point, I turn to another poet that says it better than I can. The poem is called The Weed. In the beginning, I ignore it. Weed, I think, and tell myself. I will uproot it another day. The next time I look, it has a second set of leaves. I yank it out, but it burrows deep. I make a mental note. I must use iron on it. But I forget again. The next time I look, it is knee-high, ready to flower. Ruthlessly, I cut it down, defy it to try again. There is no room in my garden for the unplanned invader. I grow busy. Tend the neat beds, water and feed each sprout, prune and spray the bushes. I look at last in the dark corner. It is flowering. Tall, straight stalks bearing pink, fragrant flowers, strong, sweet perfume drifts across the garden. And at last I can name it. Joy. Growing unbidden and unnurtured in the depth of my soul. Ultimately, joy does not come to us from the outside. It grows like a stubborn weed on the inside of us because of the deep giftedness of life of which we are a part. Amen.